Okay, so today we're going to talk about spirituality. And I think it's an important thing to talk about because I think that it's lacking. It's lacking. So we're going to kind of go into like what I found on this spiritual journey of mine and where I'm at and like how I kind of came to these conclusions. But if you've never seen me before, hi, my name is Donovan and I am here to live a fulfilling and authentic lifestyle. So part of that is really understanding the self. And so when people say that they're going on a spiritual journey, in my opinion, personally, the spirit is the self. It's like truly understanding at your core what, like, who you are, what your soul came here to do. What is your purpose? That is spirituality to me. So the way that I look at it is you have to understand the language of your soul. And the easiest way to understand the language of the soul, at least to begin with, emotions. Emotions are the common language of telling you, how do I feel about this? Like this is the energy that's coming through, because everything goes back to energy. And so that is the way that the soul communicates, is energy. And what are emotions? Energy in motion. So makes sense, right? So when you understand your emotions, you can start to communicate with your soul on how you feel about things truly. And it's not about like society taught me to feel this way about this. It's what internally is actually arising. And that's where I kind of want to get further into spiritual tools, because I don't think that spiritual tools are, one, as obvious as they should be, and two, I don't think the spiritual tools that we do have are being promoted or shown in the correct lighting. So first up, we have tarot cards, right? I love tarot cards. I read them all the time. That was a huge part of my spiritual journey, was using tarot cards, because here's the thing. What does tarot tell you? It tells you energy. It tells you the current vibe. Or if you're asking for the next 3 months, like what's going to happen, it'll give you a general understanding of what's going to happen in the next 3 months based on the energy now. Keep in mind, energy is changing all of the time. You can actually change energy anytime you want. Time is a fake concept. We made it up. Nothing takes time. It takes energy. It takes alignment. That is why manifestation is such a thing. However, I do think a lot of the time we use manifestation for the future, but the thing about it is, again, time isn't linear, which means that you also have to understand your traumas. That means that you have to actually talk to your soul about, hey, where am I actually, like, what's ingrained in me that I need to uningrain in myself. And so that's where I think I almost think that there's levels to energy. I don't actually know how to properly articulate this yet, but it's kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot, is there's layers. It's like the top layer can be used for manifestation, but then there's deeper layers. And it's like the further you go into the layers, if you can really reach that bottom layer, that means that you've worked on yourself. That means that you've actually been doing the work, the internal work. I actually don't give a single shit about what you've accomplished in the external. Because here's the thing, unless you've gone so deep and into those deeper layers and truly done the shadow work, if you will, you're not going to maintain it. You're not going to maintain it. It's going to be, we're going to go back. So a while ago, I made a video about a Rubik's Cube, and I was talking about how life is a lot like a Rubik's Cube. You might finish one side, and the one side might like look great, but in order to accomplish the next side, you're going to have to like spin, and the side that you completed that looked perfect is going to have to like get fucked up a little bit in order to fix the other side. And so life is just one big Rubik's Cube where you're constantly trying to fix one wall and then get to the next wall and then the next one and the next one until you have all 6 sides like totally good. Now, you can define those 6 sides however you want. Do whatever you want. But the thing about it is, you won't have all 6 sides completed. Your Rubik's Cube will not be completed unless you go to the depths of your soul, to the depths of yourself, to the depths of your purpose. Because otherwise you're not evolved. So yeah, great. Congratulations. You have a lot of money. All right, how's your health? Are you using food as a coping mechanism? Are you using drugs as a coping mechanism? Are you using alcohol as a coping mechanism? Do you smoke cigarettes as a coping mechanism? How are you coping with things? How is your love life? Are all of your dynamics actually really shitty? Do you actually not know how to connect with anyone because you are so far into the mindset of protect that you couldn't possibly have a true, genuine connection with anyone? How's your spirit? Do you hate yourself? Do you try and cope with things with your money? Is that like how you're evaluating yourself, is based on your money, and then like your spirit, you kind of sold your soul for money? You see, like, you might have one side and you might be really good at one side of the Rubik's Cube, but that's not the point of life. The point of life is to be so good internally that all the other walls just fall into place. It isn't until you hit true fulfillment internally. So all of your cubes can look messed up to start with. But once you align at the very, very core, that's when suddenly everything will just, secret wall, just fit right into place. Now, part of this, again, we'll go back to tarot cards, is a great way to understand if you are lying to yourself, is using tarot cards to vibe check yourself. And the thing about this is, it is really hard at first, and that's exactly why I actually don't hate the idea of using ChatGPT, because I do think that when you are learning tarot to start with, one, it is a great tool for understanding like what the archetypes actually are, because it will tell you in each one, if you would like. You can always tell it like how you would like it to portray the readings to you, but it's going to tell you what the archetypes are. So the more that they keep showing up in your life, that's how you're truly going to learn it. You can read a book all you want, but until you can like actually feel the card, because it's coming up in your life and you're understanding the energy truly, it's the association that's going to get you a lot further than just reading about it. And I feel like when it comes to tarot, you can just start by using ChatGPT, because again, your intuition is something that you have to work on. So I do think that you should try to read your own cards for sure. And like, but I do think maybe sometimes that comes with like, you kind of have to understand the cards to some degree. I guess you could just lay them out and then look in the little booklets or Google them, whatever, and come to your own conclusions and kind of bring them together that way too. So there's a lot of different ways, but I'm just saying that I don't hate ChatGPT as a tool whenever you're first learning tarot, just because of the fact that you won't have great intuition to start with. It's something that you practice. It's something that you learn to trust. And so being able to not have a bias in the readings that you're getting is going to be very helpful for you understanding your energy and where you're lying to yourself. So for example, tarot cards should not be like, how does this person feel about me? Honestly, the way that I view that, I think that a lot of people on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, a lot of people use that as clickbait to get people in, to suck you in. And it's just like, that's not the way that they're supposed to be used. That is actually very wrong, in my opinion. I think if you're looking up someone's feelings, it's no different than seeing someone's journal out on a desk. Just because it's available doesn't mean you should read it. You know, it's ethics, it's morals. Have good morals. I won't even call them good, just ethics. It's pure ethics not to read someone's thoughts and feelings just because they're available to you. And so it's understanding that these tools are meant to understand the self, to help you evolve as a person and understand what is the lesson for today, what is the intention for today, what can I expect from today, where am I lying to myself. All of these different types of questions are fine. If you have a dynamic that you're in, I don't necessarily think it's bad to be like, what am I supposed to be learning from this dynamic? That's not a bad question. You can use relationships as tools for understanding how you're supposed to evolve, but if you are constantly asking about what someone else is thinking or feeling, you also have to ask yourself, all right, is that kind of showing me that I don't self-validate, that I'm trying to use someone else's thoughts and feelings in order to validate like who I am? Am I using it so that way I can manipulate them a little bit easier? I just feel like there's a lot that can be reflected to you in the questions that you're asking tarot. So I do think that's a great tool, and I do think that understanding archetypes and understanding energies, great place to start. Another tool that I respect a lot, but I also kind of hate at the same time, is pendulums. So I got, one of my friends gave me a pendulum for my birthday back in October, and that was truly like an awakening for me, in the sense that I went into like a spiritual psychosis for a hot second there, because I thought that I had the answers to the world, and while the pendulum does have the answers to the world, it's not going to give you them. It's not going to give you them. However, whenever you're first starting out, it is really cool, because you kind of have to be like, oh my gosh, is this real? Is this real? Based on the questions. Like, you're going to think that you are the chosen one that knows everything. Respectfully, you're going to learn probably pretty quickly that it's not the case. But what I do appreciate about the pendulum is the fact that you get into your head whatever scenario you're asking about, and depending on how far down the rabbit hole you go, you're really going to understand how you feel about things, because emotions are going to arise. You're going to take it as reality, and you're going to process these emotions, and I do think it's helpful, because usually most of the time you're alone, so it doesn't really matter what your reaction is. It's not like you're blowing up on a person or something is happening, as long as you are able to understand, like, don't act on anything that you're learning through the pendulum, and you just take it in and you absorb the information, or you absorb the reflection that it's creating for you. Very helpful. You might be able to process a lot of emotions. You might start to see the questions that you're asking the pendulum, and again, reflect. Why am I asking that question? What is that telling me about what I already think about this situation? What is this telling me what I already think about this person specifically? And again, I think that's kind of the best way to use a pendulum. Or if you're looking for, I think it's a great tool for understanding how to flow with things, in the sense that, like, I've had this conversation before, but I don't know that I believe in logic. Logic is the thing that's supposed to make sense, right? But it's us using our conscious brain, and our conscious brain is stupid. Like, it's I forget who it is, but I think it was someone back in the 70s or something literally coined the 3D mind, which is the conscious, as Mr. Stupid, because it's all ego, right? So when you're trying to start to learn how to truly flow and how to truly trust your intuition, it's kind of about thinking you can start at the very, very base of, what will I wear today? But what will I wear? And you might have an idea of what you want to wear, and then just kind of, you can always play with the pendulum and be like, so this? And if it says no, it's an interesting experiment to see what it says yes to. And I think that this is actually just interesting. You could also use tarot for this as well. It's just one card draw, like yes or no to whatever you're doing, because it's going to tell you what the energy is, right? Again, it all goes back to energy. So I think it's a great way to start to kind of learn how to flow. Like, should I go to this place or should I go to this place? Like, what's going to happen? Like, you don't really know why they're leading you to these places. You don't know if it's because you just need to be alone. You don't know if it's going to be because there's going to be someone that you need to meet there. You don't know if you're going to see a sign that you need to see there. You don't really know. The thing about the universe is a lot of it is retrospective. And until you realize that majority of it is retrospective, then you're going to kind of suffer a little bit, because you're going to keep setting expectations or thinking that you know something, and you just don't. Like, you'll have gut feelings about stuff, but anything that you consciously think, no, sorry. But yeah, I think it's really interesting because spirituality, well, I do think it is about the self, and I do think that those are two great tools for understanding. You can get into other things like palm reading. Personally, I've never really gotten that into it, and like doing tea leaves and stuff like that. Like, I think that those are fun things to learn along the way, but I will say, I will always have the mindset of, you need to learn the rules in order to break the rules. You need to be able to learn all of these different things and just be interested in it in order for you to actually pick and choose what you want to absorb and what you think is actually important to understand. So with that, there's spirituality as a whole. And then you have religion. Religion is a sector of spirituality, because at the end of the day, spirituality is just the connection between you and the source. You can call that source God, Allah, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. You can call it whatever. It is all the same thing. But you start getting into religions, and religions are ways to teach morals, for sure. There's definitely some good philosophies in there, but the thing about religion is that it's almost, to me, like believing in a political party. It's kind of like, you can have broader thoughts and ideas than what the party actually stands for. Like, it just because you're a religion, like, I think that's kind of why I don't really care about religions, is because my beliefs aren't going to fit into a box like a religion. Like, I think spirituality should definitely be more open-minded and broad, and you don't need to fit into a box. You can take the concepts that really resonate with you and leave what doesn't. And I think that is actually the most interesting thing when you talk to people about their, like, if you ask someone if they're spiritual and they say yes, I'm actually still trying to figure out what questions almost to ask, because I feel like spirituality is experienced so differently across so many different people. And so it's like, how do you actually get the proper question to learn information about what they're studying almost, or what they're practicing? Because if you think about it, yeah, you can do religions, but there's also things like witchcraft, or like you can just go back to ancient philosophies, or breath practices. All of these things fit under spirituality. They're so different, but they're all the things, and yet you're gonna notice similarities if you truly start to look across the lines. Like, for example, Persephone was my favorite goddess, Greek goddess for sure, and I didn't realize until I started getting into ancient Egypt that Isis is actually like who that was born from. And then you get into a whole Virgin Mary. It's a whole thing. They all interconnect. If you look at hoodoo, voodoo, all of those people, that you learn that the culture, they're all associated with Catholic saints, because that was how they hid the religion during that time period where they were slaves, and they could easily be taken to jail for practicing voodoo instead of Catholicism, because everyone had to convert to Catholicism. So it's just all about understanding that you should be looking at religions, and you should be understanding their mentalities, their practices, what they truly stood for. And one, that's for you to be able to, again, help discover the self, because that is what the spirit is. But also understanding that we're having so many religious wars, right? And for what? And for what? Half the stuff is the exact same, just written differently. It's like having the same movie over and over and over again, except it's just like the 1955 version versus the 1977 version versus the 2001 version. Like, it's the same shit. Stop fighting. And so it's just interesting getting further and further into these things and recognizing where everything connects. But it was interesting because I was at a witch shop the other day, and I saw something about Kabbalah, and I was like, all right, now I've seen this enough times where I'm like, what the fuck is this? And she was like, that is not the place to start. And I was like, well, I wasn't trying to start there. I just have seen it a lot of times, so I just want to know what it is. And then I mentioned something else, and she was like, yeah, that's also not a place to start. And I was like, okay, great. Again, not trying to start there, just want to know what it is because it keeps coming up. So at that point, I was like, you know what? Let's play a different game. Where would you recommend starting? And she said, with where you're at, as in on Earth. Being able to understand the Earth is going to do a lot for you. So it's interesting because I had just gone to, I think it's pronounced Ayurveda. Ayurveda? It's an ancient Indian practice about basically being one with nature and understanding. For example, she talked about rising with the sun, resting with the sunset, and what time you should eat your meal so that way you can understand the energy. Like, you can use the energy around you in order to help with digestion. So she was like, for example, eating lunch at 1 p.m. during the summer, that's when the sun is at its peak, that's when it's going to give you the most energy, that's when digestion is going to be easiest. So it's all about understanding these little things, which again, I think heavily go back to ancient practices because, again, they didn't have, I actually don't really know, they didn't have the technologies that we have today. They very much so understood. Their technology was the earth. They understood the planets, the tidal waves, the ocean, the whatever you want to call it. They understood seasons. They understood cycles. They were one with nature. And until we go back and learn these things that these ancient people very clearly understood and did well with, think about it. They lived off the land. They lived just fine. They lived luxuriously. They built the fucking pyramids, respectfully. They knew stuff that we didn't. That we don't. That we could know but don't know because it was either destroyed on purpose or because we actually just let it die. Because we thought, well, we have new technology. We don't need the old technology. Okay, how far is that really getting us? I don't know. But if we want to talk about the age of Aquarius, we're coming out of the age of Pisces. It's kind of hard to say like when the age of Aquarius like truly starts. And that's basically just like a cycle. I think it's like 2,165 years or something like that. But that's coming to an end. But we're also, Pluto is in Aquarius, which means that in the next 20 years, there's a lot of Aquarius energy in the sense of humanitarianism, technology, and connectedness. It's for the collective. And I think what's going to end up happening is we are going to have to kind of have some sort of spiritual awakening here that allows for community through connection. The power dynamic of control is going to have to go. And I think we're going to start seeing that more and more often in the way that people are ruling and the way that people are leading is going to be with a more feminine lens than a masculine lens. At least in the sense that at least in the past probably like 2,000 years, you know what? All of the men that I've ever read about in history usually led with dominance, not from the heart center. most women always led with the heart center, and that was the benefit of having a matriarchy, because it was community and it was connection. So we're gonna see more female leaders. 2, we're gonna see more men start to shift out of the control dynamic. Men are gonna start to actually learn to connect again, if that was ever the case. And on top of that, we're gonna stop obsessing over technology, and we're gonna start actually using it to our benefit. We are going to get out of the dynamic of it controlling our lives, and we are going to start using it as a tool to help us in our everyday things, to actually save us time, save us energy, so that way we can continue to pour our energy into innovation and furthering more technology to give back to us, if that makes sense. And it's interesting, because I do think that this all starts with a spiritual awakening of understanding the self, because you cannot connect with someone if you do not understand yourself. So, this has been a lovely chat, guys. But if there is one thing that sticks with you, that you should really think about, is how can I better get to know myself? And start really digging deep into that. Start looking at shadow work. Start looking at different religions, not necessarily to follow them, but to understand them. Remember to be open-minded. And yeah, I think that's what I have for you today. This has just been something that I've been thinking about for a long time now, and I was like, today's the day. Today's the day. Anyways, if you like this video, go ahead and gives it a thumbs up. If you have anything to contribute to this conversation, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so go ahead and comment below. And then, of course, subscribe. I love chatting with you guys. And for more content, for more ideas like this, go ahead and go over to my Patreon, because I typically type some stuff up over there that are either downloads or just kind of thoughts. Like, we're still building out the page, but still has really good information. Has really good thoughts. Yeah. Anyways, I hope you have a great day. All my love. Bye.